Good morning, everybody. Matthew, I have got a story that is going to piggyback right off of yours. We're all talking about legislative change that needs to take place, and looks like Missouri is trying to do their fair share of work. My headline reads, Missouri GOP lawmakers file bills to legalize psilocybin therapy and fund clinical trials for 2024 session. Missouri Republican lawmakers have pre-filed a pair of bills to legalize the medical use of psilocybin that require clinical trials exploring the therapeutic potential of the psychedelic. Senator Holly Thompson Ryder and Representative Aaron McMullen introduced similar versions of the legislation for the 2024 session, setting the stage for further consideration of psychedelics reform in the Show Me state. Under both proposals, adults 21 or older who were diagnosed with qualifying conditions such as post-traumatic stress disorder or substance misuse disorder could legally access laboratory-tested psilocybin. They would also need to be enrolled or sought enrollment in a Department of Health and Senior Services clinical trial involving the psychedelic. The Senate version mirrors a separate House bill that advanced to the floor this year but was ultimately not enacted. There are also numerous requirements for patients to provide DHSS with information about their diagnosis, the person who would be administering psilocybin, and other details on the place and time of the treatment sessions. Psilocybin could only be administered over a maximum of a 1-year period, with the amount of psychedelic in that treatment capped at 150 milligrams, though qualifying patients could also be approved to continue for subsequent 1-year periods. Regulators, physicians, and state agency officials would all be protected from legal consequences related to activity made lawful under the legislation. Also, the legislation calls for DHSS to provide $2 million in grants to support research on the use and efficacy of psilocybin. A person named Epen Thampi, a lobbyist for American Shaman and organizer of Psychedelic Missouri, told Marijuana Moment he expects the Senate measure will be further refined through the committee process. The biggest issue with passing this proposal in 2024 will be external politics and election year drama, he said. We've largely won the argument about the legitimacy and urgency of the need of psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. The measure further expands the state's right to try statute to allow people with life-threatening or severely debilitating conditions to access experimental controlled substances, in addition to those with terminal illnesses, as in the case under current law. It would strike language that prohibits the use of Schedule I drugs in an initial step to potentially opening up access to other substances such as additional psychedelics. Additionally, the states that psilocybin research can be done by an institution of higher education in the state or contract research organizations conducting trials approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Missouri has stood out as a key battleground for the psychedelics reform movement, with multiple GOP legislators championing proposals to free up access and promote research into the therapeutic potential of plant-based medicines in recent years. Guys, we just had a long conversation about the need for reform. I'm curious to hear what you think about Missouri's ideas on how it ought to be done. This is Carmen Sacramento coming at you on a bright, shiny Monday morning. What do you say?
I know Epen. That is such a small world. Yes. We've worked on cannabis policy together back in the day.
Oh, very cool. Yes. He has a cool name.
Yes. Yeah. Shout out to Epen out there in Missouri, helping them out with their mushrooms, apparently now.
This is good news.
I mean, what do you guys think? Because the reform has to start somewhere, right? I'm not saying that this has all the answers. I'm not saying that I agree with every single one of these proposals, but it's something. I don't like when we propose like dosage limits. I feel like that has to be up to the clinician and the patient.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
But the accessibility, the insight and the forethought and the advocacy for research studies, for people to have controlled environments where they can go and get treatment. these are really strong steps in the right direction, in my opinion.
I just feel like ultimately it's gonna lead to a similar thing like what Matthew stated in the previous story. It's gonna be basically mushrooms are gonna end up being cannabis 2.0 all over again, and you're gonna have a thriving trap market, and then you're gonna have a big, large pharmaceutical market on the compound side of it, and then you're gonna have still maybe possibly some states have some form of a regulated marketplace, but the trap is going to probably thrive more than anything.
We've been seeing the exact same arc with cannabis too, in that so many people jumped out of cannabis and into mushrooms thinking they were going to make a quick conversion, and because of that, the price has bottomed out, and there's an overwhelming glut of supply. Another reason for the glut of supply is, unlike cannabis, mushrooms are dried or freeze dried, and so can actually last several years. So the glut isn't like cannabis, where if you have a glut within a few months, a lot of that will expire. So there's a lot of pounds sitting around everywhere. For me, it's a great thing. And the thing I see about mushrooms is they're doing an even better job of cannabis, even better job than cannabis, of really resisting commodification and the money hustle. And one of the things I think psychedelics are here on Earth to do is to show us that money is an abstract concept and not necessary. If you were to listen to the Tetragrammaton podcast with Rick Rubin, in which he had RFK on, they were discussing that the main reason for the creation of fiat currency in Europe was to fund colonization and expeditionary wars. And so we have a tool that is literally made for oppression and warfare. And as much as people think that it's real and it'll never change, I talk to people all the time, and I have a lot of visions for the future. I feel like I'm still brave and able to not just say, oh, it's the way it is and it's always going to be fucked. I have visions for the future, and I encounter a lot of people that think that the status quo is going to be forever. But if you look through history, there's long periods of the status quo, and then there's short, sometimes violent, sometimes traumatic, and sometimes just revelatory moments where everything changes. And so don't believe that it's going to be the way that it is forever, because it's not. Don't believe that you don't have the power to affect what is happening in your local world and the world around you. We can all change this, and the number one way we do this is by envisioning and dreaming a new way. And to quote one of my culture heroes, Jerry Garcia, without love and a dream, it will never come true. The converse of that is fill your heart with love. Dream a vision of what you want to see in this world, in your community, and go out and consciously work for it every day. Mm-hmm. And have fun.
And
love that.
Have fun. Oh, yes. Any thoughts, Yarl, or before we move to you real quick?
Who's that Garcia guy? Didn't he make like a really good ice cream?
Oh man!
He had like a flavor or something like that, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit of flavor. Well, coming up next.